Hola, how's everyone doing today? My beard is gray, my name is Trey. For those of y'all who don't know me, I am a cloud support engineer for Amazon Web Services. And today, I'm here to talk to you about how to create virtual machines in the cloud. And we're gonna accomplish this by using a service called EC2, which stands for Elastic Cloud Compute. All right, now you can create virtual machines on your home computer, no problem, but you will be taking away from resources from your home computer. So it's just much easier just to get it done in the cloud. So without further ado, we're gonna go over to the console and get started. All right, so our first step, right, is to log into the console. So for me, no matter what I'm doing, security is always the #1 priority. So not only do I have IAM enabled on my console, but I also have two-factor authentication enabled as well, right? So what I like to do is I like to use my two favorite authentication apps, right? I'm gonna try to show them to you real quick. All right, I know it's a little bit fuzzy, so let me wait till it zooms in. All right, there we go. So the one on the top is called Authy, and then the one on the bottom is called Microsoft Authenticator. And this is what I use to create like a one-time passcode that I can just hit and then log into the system. So I use Authy a lot, and for my practicing and my production stuff, I have multiple accounts and I just use Authy. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and sign in right now on the actual console, and it's gonna ask me for an MFA code, right? The good thing about the Authy app, right, is that it generates a new code every 30 seconds, so you don't have to worry about any credentials getting expired. So I'm gonna go ahead and input this code, right? No spaces. Doesn't matter that I'm showing it here because in a couple of seconds, it's gonna be invalid again. So it doesn't matter, right? So now we're gonna go and create our first virtual machines, right? Or our EC2 instances, right? So we go into the console and then we just click on the EC2. So then what happens, it brings us to the EC2 dashboard, right? I'm not gonna go over a lot of this stuff because we wanna get right down to it and we just wanna go ahead and launch our instance. One thing that I will point out, right? You wanna be careful and you want to be aware everywhere that you do launch an instance at, because there's different costs associated with each availability zone, right? With different regions, right? And different availability zones. So just for the simplistic demonstration of this video, right? I'm going to use US East 1, which is in North Virginia. All right, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to launch instance, okay? Now we're getting down to the good stuff. We're getting down to the good stuff here, right? Now, first thing we want to do is we want to give our instance a name. Let's call it Uncle Trey VM, right? Something simple, right? Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make this screen just a little bit larger so everyone can see. I won't call it Uncle Trey VM, I'll call it Uncle Trey 007. I'll see if I can use that, right? So now what happens is we come over here, now we have to pick the operating system for our specific instance, right? So you see they have Amazon Linux, you can use Mac OS, right? When we're creating our web service, you use Ubuntu, you can use Microsoft Windows, they have Red Hat, OpenSUSE, right? Debian. So for this demonstration, all right, we're gonna use Amazon Linux, right? So now this is the machine image. You know, nothing really here to see. You just want to make sure that the machine image is within the free tier, right? That's one thing I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video. I'm so sorry. But everything that we're going to be doing is free tier eligible, right? So you can sign up for a free account from AWS and you can practice all this stuff, but just make sure that all the services that you are practicing on is within the free tier. So as you can see, this particular AMI, Amazon Machine Image, is within the free tier, right? So we're gonna choose that one. So when we come down to the instance type, all right, they have different instance types that can do different things. All right, we're not really concerned with that, but just know, like, you know, they have some different instance types, like C means compute optimized. So as you see, this one has 60 gigs of memory. And the good thing about these instances, right, whenever you choose an instance, it's gonna tell you how much it costs per hour to use, right? So you won't be blindsided. And they have different pricing so you see for the Linux, this is the Linux pricing right here. And then for Windows, this is the Windows pricing. So this is how much it costs per hour. But for us, right, today, we're gonna use the free tier so we don't have to worry about it. But if you wasn't using the free tier, right, then this is what it would cost you per hour. Now, the next thing that we have to do when creating our machine, right, like I said, security is #1 priority, we need to create a key pair. So what we're gonna do, all right, and it says you can proceed without a key pair, but we're not gonna do that, right? We're gonna create one, simple enough. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give this key pair a name. I'm gonna call this key pair, you know, red 16, right? Just some random name, doesn't matter. Now, it's using the RSA algorithm to create this key pair, right? And the most important thing is when you have the private key file format, you want to make sure, so you have two ones, right? You have .pem and you have .ppk. So .ppk is going to be used if you're trying to access your virtual machine with PuTTY, right? If you want to access your machine with PuTTY. But for us, we want to SSH into our machine, so we're going to use the .pem file format, all right? And then you just come over here to create key pair, and voila, everything is done. All right, so now for the network settings, we're gonna leave everything at the default just to keep it simple. You can either create a security group, or you can choose an existing security group. We're just gonna go ahead and create one, a lot easier, right? All right, and the one that we create, you always need to pay attention, it's called Launch Wizard 4. So just remember, Launch Wizard 4. All right, now we want to allow SSH traffic, and we want to allow it from anywhere, right? Now you have some options. You can do a custom where you can tell it this specific IP, or you can just say my IP. I would strongly advise against that, especially if you are using like your home personal computer, have a service provider like Comcast, Xfinity, Spectrum, or wherever you live in the world watching this video, because your IP is subject to change. You don't have a static IP unless you set it up on the router yourself, right? So you can just use this anywhere, it won't hurt because you're the only one with the key pair anyway, right? All right, so next, configure the storage. We're gonna leave this at default because once again, the storage that it has configured with this actual virtual machine is free tier eligible, right? So that's good. All right, and then we're just gonna come to the summary. So we're only gonna do one instance, all right? Using the AMI Linux 2 kernel, all right? Creating a Linux machine, T2 micro is the virtual server type, instance type, all right? And then we're gonna use that security group. So then we're gonna click launch instance, right? And it doesn't take long at all. Bam, just that fast, you created a virtual machine within the cloud. All right, so now let's go over here to the instance tab. Let me bring this back just a tad so everyone can kind of see what's going on. So we have our instances. So the instance that we just created was Uncle Trey 007. That's the name of our instance, right? You know, it's a very cool name if you ask me, you know. So one thing we're gonna do is we're gonna check out some things that's going on real quick while our instance is building, all right? So this is just a couple of details about our instance. We're not gonna go too involved in depth. It's just a couple of things that I do wanna show you real quick, okay? Number one, so your instance is gonna have a public IP address and it's gonna have a private IP address. But just remember, if you stop the instance and you start it again, this public IP address is going to change. The only way that it would not change is if you gave it an elastic IP, which is like a static IP, but then that would incur some costs, right? So then you have this private IP that's going to always stay the same, and then you have a public DNS, which I'm going to show you. We're going to use this in a few minutes. Then you have like some security features, right? Just tell us like, hey, we're going to use port 22. Everyone knows what port 22, SSH, right? All right, and our security group is Launch Wizard 4, which has already been assigned. All right, you got your networking information, you got your subnet, you know, your VPC, so on and so forth, right? And then the storage, for the Linux, right? You know, this is how you find your storage, and this is the volume size, so on and so forth, right? So everything is good. Everything looks like it checks out. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna connect to our instance. So we have this box right here checked. All right, let me come in just a tad. We have this box checked and we're gonna connect to our instance. Now there are several ways to connect to your instance, right? You can do EC2 instance connect, right? Where you just press connect and then it's just gonna take you to the actual terminal. It's just gonna connect like that because they already know that you're inside of the cloud. So they're just gonna connect you directly to your machine. What we're gonna do today is we're gonna SSH into our machine, right? And that's how we're gonna connect to the device. So it's gonna provide you with some instructions, right? Open an SSH client. So then that's when you open up like PowerShell, right? So what we'll do is we'll type in, this is gonna be off screen, but I'm just gonna type in PowerShell, right? I'm just gonna type in PowerShell and bam, PowerShell will come up. That's how you spell it if you're not familiar or you never heard of it or whatever. So this is important. So when I downloaded that key pair, right, it went to the downloads folder, right? So it did go to the downloads folder. So now I have to go into the downloads folder to be able to use that key pair. So what I'm gonna do I mean, I know this is the downloads folder, but just in case, right? And I come here and I say, okay, this is the folder that I want to get into. All right, so I'm just going to clear that up so everyone can see it. And then I'm going to go in CD, and I got to make sure that the spelling, because this is Linux, right? I got to make sure that the spelling is exactly, see how I did that wrong, right? So now let's look and see. You see this says download, so that's with an S, right? So we want to copy and paste that. All right. See, I made that mistake right here in front of you. You just always want to know that like Linux is like case sensitive, right? So you want to make sure that you always have the proper case. I'm gonna CD into the downloads folder, and now I'm gonna look for my file. Now I know this looks like a lot of output and gibberish, but it's really not. It's just all the files. But the good thing about this is it is in alphabetical order, right? So I believe we called our key pair red 16, and there it is right there. So that's the one that I'm actually looking for, is red 16, and that is my key pair, okay? So now this is what all you have to do to connect to your machine, right? Now that you've gotten into the proper folder where the key pair is actually located, this is what you would have to type out in order to get to your machine, right? So you have the DNS information, you have the key pair information, and then SSH-I is how you would log in, right? All right, so you just click on this button. So you just click on this button right here, then you bring your PowerShell back up. And then all you have to do is just right click, and then it will copy and paste everything over into the terminal. Okay, now you're gonna press enter, and once you press enter, you're gonna get a little message like this. It's gonna say, hey, the authenticity of the host cannot be established. Don't worry about it, right? And it's gonna actually, are you sure that you want to continue? You just go ahead and type yes. All right, and bam, just like that, you have your you're inside of your EC2 machine. I'm gonna say something real quick, right? And I don't mind sharing, stuff with you guys. You're all family here. Look, I looked at this like 100 times before I realized these little squiggly lines up here say EC2. Isn't that embarrassing? But hey, check it, doesn't matter, right? Now, and this is like, say, this is a regular Linux machine, right? So you will go through and update it the same way that you would update, any other machine, so on and so forth. Press your little yes. And voila, just like that, we're done. So I hope everyone enjoyed today's video. All right, like I say, it's not hard at all. You just have to get into the console and play around. If you have anything that if anybody out there has anything that they would like to see me demonstrate, please leave it into the comment section below and I'll get to it, all right? Thank you all for tuning in. Appreciate you. It is Uncle Trey signing off. See y'all.